Hi, kitty. Yeah. You're such a neat little Isabella the cat. You're such a neat tabby cat. Yeah, you like laying by that thing, don't you? Yeah, you're laying by your cat tower. Yeah, you're a neat kitty, 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 kitty. Hi, YouTube fans. This is Matt of Post April 6th YouTube channel. Well, this is a vlog that's going to be a long one about day 1005 and 1006. Yeah, I even made a new intro jingle that was different than what I usually do, because I wanted to do something different for a change. And this story it's a story idea, is what the vlog is about. This is about a incident that happened that was really, really, really violent. That happened in Denver, Colorado. It happened in North Denver, in the City Park West neighborhood. It happened between 18th and 19th Avenue of correction. Yeah, 18th and 19th Avenue on this, where the incident occurred within itself, on North Marion Street. North Marion Street is 2 blocks away from Humboldt, and it is approximately 3 to 4 blocks away from Downing. You know, Marion would be down here, and Downing would be up here. It's going to be a little further east, but it's going to be a street that's north-south street instead of a east-west street. And who the story is about, because he doesn't get violently injured or anything like that, but it's something he witnesses from about 13 stories up in an apartment building, because the noise that's out in the middle of the street, I mean, even deaf people can hear it, because the firearms that are being used are loud machine guns, and even deaf people can hear it because it's so incredibly loud. And there's people screaming that walk on the street because they're really scared to see this. And there's dogs barking. The person who sees this, his name was originally J.J. Hernandez. He's a man who's Hispanic, but his name had to be changed to Antonio Jonas Parday. And this last name, it's going to sound like party, but it's Parday. P-A-R-D-E-Y. Or Pardee. How you prefer to pronounce it? Because I looked up this last name. This last name actually does exist. He's age 31. And he lived at a apartment building, because this place does exist. If it's not this exact address, it's quite close to what I'm about to mention. 1800 North Marion Street, but it's called 1800 Marion Place Apartments. And he lives in apartment 1305 because he's way up high. And his job is a PBX operator for St. Christopher Inn, earning $12 per hour. It's one of those 8 to 4 jobs, or 9 to 5 jobs, or 10:30 to 6 jobs. And the date of the horror itself, when it occurred, was about 2 p.m. or somewhere between 2 p.m. and 2:10 p.m., May 8th, 2016. And this was a day off for him. This was a Sunday. And here was the horror that he actually heard, just right after it happened. 3 men in 2 different, 2 are in one and one's in another. They parked the cars on a diagonal angle to box in and entrap a large stretch, what's called a stretch van. It's a van that has 6 doors on the side and 1 door in the back to get into the area that would be called a trunk or rear storage. Not a hatchback, just rear storage. And the accomplices or the criminals or the gunmen that do this are 3 men wearing ninja outfits, and their face is so covered up you can barely make out their eyes, and they got MAC-10 machine guns, and they're going, and they're holding it like this, going at the stretch van. The stretch van was owned by a company that did special tours of the Denver metro area, and it was called something like Jersey, Colorado Specialty Tours. Excuse me. Sorry about that. The the tripod was giving me fits, so I had to make some adjustments. Okay, so as soon as he hears the gunfire, he doesn't just walk over to the window and look out, because he's worried that if he does that, these could be some really psychotic individuals that would fire at him. So he stands right by the one, the window's here, and he would stand right about here. Or the window starts here, and he wouldn't stand here, he would stand here, right there. Right up against the area where nobody could make out his face, and he's looking this way instead of, like this. And he sees him firing away, and then he reaches over into his pocket, and he gets out a LG Nexus 4K smartphone. Because see, back in 2016, a 4G powered smartphone was, pretty high tech. Now 4G is obsolete. It doesn't have as much power as a 5G, as most people know. Okay, and he calls 911, and he describes what's going on, and the dispatch operator that takes the call with Denver police is aware of what's going on because 2 other people have called in right before he called in. I mean, they almost all 3 of them almost called in simultaneously. One called in at about 34 seconds before he called. The second one was 20 seconds before, 22 seconds before he called, and then he calls. He's the 3rd person that calls in. And there is not only some police officers that are going to cautiously approach the area, SWAT is about to get involved. Oh yeah, because they keep reloading and they blow that van to smithereens. They really do. And what happens is SWAT gets over there within about 2 minutes. It's three people from SWAT, and they get out of the special SWAT van or the SWAT, bulletproof vehicle, and they go over there and they get on a talkie and they basically on one of those megaphones, not a talkie, a megaphone, and they just say, "Cease fire! Stop with. Put down your weapons and put your hands up or we will start firing. You have 2 seconds." And they try to fire at him, and they duck down and they go and they got an assault weapon, and they started firing at those 3 guys, and they take them out. Yep. This all happens within less than a minute. Yeah. Well, I don't know about a minute, but 2 minutes tops. And then they cautiously go over to it, holding their guns at these 3 people, because they know they're probably dead, but just to make sure, in case they're faking their death, they do that so that if one of them goes like this, they go pow, pow, and take them out. And once a guy gets on the either talkie or whatever, communication device, he tells them what's going on, and then some patrolmen seal that area off. They have to, because nobody can go through there. Nobody. And then it becomes a crime scene. Okay, then what happens is the guy who becomes Antonio sits on a chair, and he sits fairly far away from the window, and he sees what's going on. And about a little more than 30 minutes, roughly about 35 minutes later, he hears, Antonio hears this sound. On his front door. And he knows, because he can hear two police officers, mumbling to each other as he walks to the door. And he cracks open the door about this much, and he looks through there, and he lets them in, and they're really nice to him. But they ask him a lot of questions about what he saw and when he saw it, and what he was doing before he heard the gunshots being fired, and him walking over to the window and starting to observe what happened so he can report everything as accurately as possible. And then what happens is after they question him for at least 20 minutes, they said, okay, we're going to step out of your apartment for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then and then when you hear a knock on the door, it's us. Please let us back in immediately. After the two police officers, one's a detective, one's a patrolman, a sergeant patrolman, and they talk back and forth for a couple of minutes. And then he hears a knock on the door and lets him in immediately. And the detective is either a sergeant or a lieutenant. And he says, okay, here's what's going to happen. Because of the terrible stress you have endured, and there is a possibility, based on what we do know about the criminal suspects that pulled off this horrible crime, we're going to have you leave this apartment and get out of it, and then we're probably going to give you the option of not being in the witness protection program, but Interstate Protective Services. Now, as a side note that's different from the story, I'm saying Interstate Protective Services because such a law enforcement or Department of either State Department of Justice or U.S. Department of Justice law enforcement organization may not exist, but then again, maybe it could. I'm just simply calling it Interstate Protective Services. So anyways, back to the story. There's another knock on the door, and who it is a man who is assistant chief of detectives. His name is Ray K. Starkey. He's a guy who's about 47, 48 years old roughly. He's got a little bit of gray hair. He's got nice black hair. He's got gray streaks. He's well dressed. He's got some nice glasses on that he probably paid over $200 for. Or if he had a good, what's called optical feature with his health insurance plan, it would be at least a $75 deductible. And the chief of detectives says, okay, here's what we're going to have you do. We're not going to handcuff you, but we are going to have to escort you to the police department headquarters of Denver Police. We're going to have to have you do a videotaped deposition where we're going to ask you a bunch of questions and you just answer to the best of your ability. After all that is completed, what we will do is we are going to escort you to a safe house that will be protected by at least 3 law enforcement officers. One's going to be with Denver Police, another one's going to be with another law enforcement that will work in cooperation with us, so that you are well protected. So what he's saying is meaning there's going to be 2 on the outside, and there's going to be 1 right inside the safe house. And where the safe house is, I'm not going to say, but I can say this much. It is on the northwest side of Denver, and it is in between Alameda and I think the street is Perry, all the way over to about West Mississippi. So it's West Alameda and West Mississippi. You know, as far as a small scale, it's about, there are streets that are roughly about this far apart. So anyways, he goes with them to the deposition, and after the deposition is done, one of the this would be either a dispatch person, or it would be a uniformed police officer who's not a field patrolman. They work mostly in-house. And what they will be doing is they're going to go to Good Times Burger, and they're going to get him the cheeseburger that he wants. It's a bacon cheeseburger that he wants and likes, and they're going to get him some wild fries and a nice soft drink. And then what happens is, I believe this would be around 5 p.m. They're going to drive him in a van to the safe house, because you see he's going to sit way at the back, and he's going to hunch down like this, so that there's no way he can be seen. And then what they're going to do is they're going to let him into the house, and they're going to be walking really closely around near him, so that it's hard to make out his identity. In fact, he's probably going to have a ski mask on his face, so nobody knows his identity, and he's going to be handcuffed. Yeah. And then he's going to be in the safe house for at least 2 days. Okay, before the big event that happens, a person who is one of the right-hand people to the assistant chief of detectives. No, actually, I take that back. A person who's actually the chief of detectives and who is assistant to the police commissioner, and someone who is with the district attorney's office. It's going to be 2 men and a woman. The woman's is the one who is with the district attorney's office. Are going to come and meet with him, and they're going to tell him that he is going to be transported out of state, so that there's no way that these people can get to him, because they know a lot about the 3 suspects that are now deceased, because they returned fire and it was justifiable homicide. That he knows that they're part of a fairly big organized crime ring. Yeah. There's a good possibility that the man now known as Antonio Parday could be violently attacked, or he can be taken away and kidnapped and highly tortured. Then he's killed, or he's highly tortured, and then he's left out in the middle of nowhere in a lake that's way out in at least 8 miles from the nearest town, even if the nearest town's just a little small, dinky little town. And what they do is the guy who does most of the talking, he's the chief of detectives. He gets out a nice leather-bound portfolio where everything's zipped up. This is the type of thing that you may be able to find at Office Depot and another company that has good office supplies. I would say Office Depot or Office Max, but oh wait, I just thought of something. Either at Staples or Office Depot. There we go. And the first thing they do, they say, okay, here's the location that is in Dallas, Texas. They don't tell them the address. They just put on a nice 8x10 photograph that shows a color image of the location. He says, no, I don't want to live there. He said, that area is too hot, and there's too many crazy hicks that live out there, so I wouldn't be interested. And then he brings out an area that would be near, I think it's either Newland or Newburgh, Neuberg, New York State. It's upstate New York. And he says no. He says that's a cute little cottage house, but that area is probably pretty cold. I don't think I want to. He said I really don't want to be there. That's going to be too much to deal with. And then they said, what about this place? And the chief of detective says, do you know where this is? And he says, wow, it looks like L.A. Metro or L.A. itself. He says, it is Los Angeles. And he goes, really? Where is this? He says, I can't give you the exact house number, but I can tell you this much. It's in the 5900 block of Franklin Avenue in a part of L.A. that is famous. And then Antonio says, is it Hollywood, California? And the chief of detective says, yes, sir, it is. Would you like to live there? And he goes, yes, I'd like to live there. Yeah, let's do it. He says, now that I've agreed to this, what else do you want from me? He says, okay, we're not going to do this right at this time, but in sometime tomorrow, I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to have you sign some documents, and I'm going to have to advise you about some things. He says, okay, yeah, let's do it. Yes, I get to live in Hollywood. And then a few hours later, he goes into the bedroom he sleeps in, and he falls asleep. Yep. And then the next day, he is waking up, and a patrolman, who is a pretty good cook, makes a pretty good breakfast for him. And then sometime after 11:30 a.m., the chief of detectives and another guy who's well, I'm not going to say what federal law enforcement agency he's with, but let's say a federal agent is with him, and this guy is nice, but when you look at his hands and when you look at this part of his wrist, that the cuff, the cuff on the long sleeved dress shirt, and the suit doesn't cover up, you can tell he's muscular. Yeah, you don't mess with this federal agent guy, because I bet he's very tough, and he's learned a lot of hand-to-hand combat tactics. Oh yeah, he's really tough. Okay, so anyways, they talk back and forth, and they state that what's going to happen 24 hours from that part of the day is he's going to be escorted to DIA, and he's going to be escorted to a part of DIA where there's not very many people. It's a special boarding it's going to be unmarked. I think it would be. It's not going to be a 7. It's going to be like a 707 or a 600 or something. It's going to be a small jet plane. Yeah. And on the ride with them itself, on the jet plane, there's going to be a armed federal and law enforcement officer with him that's going to be sitting next to him on the plane from DIA to LAX. Yep. And the other thing that happens, we're talking about the questions that Antonio has. He written down a list of questions that he wrote before he came over. He says, one, he says, will all of my possessions except for the furniture, items that would fit in boxes, be back in my possession? And the chief executive says, yes, and then he takes out a little piece of paper in his shirt pocket, and he says, everything but the cognac that we found there, and the X-rated DVD that's in there, and the love letter from a girlfriend that you used to date will be in there. They said, but all the furniture's not going to go because this special apartment is already furnished. And then his next question is, okay, will my parents, Lorenzo and Sandra, be notified? Will I be able to have any contact with them? He says, not immediately, but eventually, yes, you will. And I'm going to have to let you know that we've came and visited your parents. They're aware of what happened, and they're aware that you're in special protective custody. And he says, in response, he says, but when will I be able to contact them? And the chief detective just goes, please, don't ask that question again. We will decide after a period of time when you can have contact with them and how you can have contact with them. Now, what's your next question? And then he says, will I be able to get a job? at some point after I've been there for a while. Yes, you will, but it's going to be at least 30 days. And then he says, how much will I earn? And he says, well, I know it's going to be over $3,000, but I don't have an exact figure as of yet. But once we know, you'll be the first to know. And then he says, okay, will I be able to cook my own food? Yes, you will, but within the first few days, we're going to have one of our special help people cook whatever food you like for you. And then he says, will I have to have a physical exam by a doctor? He says, yes, you will, but it probably won't happen for at least a week after you've been living there for a week. And then after you've been living there for a week, at some point, you will get an exam by a physician and another one by a specialist doctor. This is what kind of specialist? He says, I don't know the exact terminology, but it's going to be another specialist doctor because of what you went through. And then he says, okay, what's your next question? He says, when will I get some clothes to replace these, because I don't want to look at them again. He says, we'll make arrangements to get some clothes for you. Why don't you tell me what you want? And he tells him what he wants, and what type of socks he wants, what type of shoes he wants, and other clothing and attire that he'd like to have. Okay, so then the next day, what happens is there's a knock on his bedroom door. He says, come on, get up. He says, you have to get going. We're going to be leaving here in about an hour and a half. He says, no, but. He says, I don't mean to be a hard nose, but you got to get showered and shaved, and breakfast is going to be made for you in about 20 minutes. Okay, so just get ready. This is a big moment for you. This is your chance to see Hollywood, California. It's going to happen today. Okay, get going. He says, okay, I'll get going. And he gets showered and shaved and puts on some deodorant, and he brushes his teeth, of course. And there's a knock on the bathroom door, and he says, he just opens it and says, here. He says, here's some nice new clothes. They've been washed and ironed for you. And one of them is a really neat t-shirt that has a neat little pocket on it. And the other one is a pair of pleated dress slacks. And the third one is some black non-skid, they kind of look like athletic shoes, or what an old school title would be tennis shoes, but they're good, comfortable shoes. I mean, really comfortable, and some nice socks and underwear too. So he gets all that on, and then he says, "Okay, let's get downstairs, because I think the cook's almost done doing his cooking, or the officer that's such a good cook, I think he's done almost doing his cooking. So why don't we get down there? So, and you tell him what beverage you'd like to have, and he wants some coffee with a little bit of cream and sugar, and the coffee is really good. I mean, it's dark roast, but it's got such a nice premium flavor. He loves it. And he makes him an omelet with mushrooms and some I think it would be like a couple slices of French toast and 2 slices of bacon. I mean, that's really going to fill you up. And then what happens is the federal officer that he saw the day before comes over, and he tells him the do's and the don'ts. And he also says that, you know, if you need to use the restroom while you're there, he says, let me know, and then I'll let you in, and then you can let yourself out. And then about 30 minutes later, he says, okay, let's get in the car and let's have you get inside the car with the garage door closed, and you get in the back seat and you lay down like, and you stoop down like that so they can't see you. And he does. And it's a nice, I believe it might be, it'd be an unmarked car, of course. I believe the car would be a really nice Honda or a Lexus. Yes. And they go, and when they get to the point where they're at DIA, they don't go in one of the doors that you normally go through. What they do is they go up to the 6th floor, and they go to a security officer and the guy who's physically escorting him on the airplane puts out his badge, and he puts out a special piece of paper, and then they go and sit in a little office that is about I mean, it's so small, it's only about 300 square feet. About enough room for 2 desks and about maybe 2 to 3 people. But it's going to be tight in there. Okay, so anyways, they sit in there, and they don't sit down. They don't even sit down. They just stand up and pay close attention, keep their eyes open, their ears peeled and their ears open to protect themselves. And then what they do is they go through the, it's one of those golf cart things. They go through that area, they go in, and they go to this concourse that is that most, you know, typical passengers or customers of DIA would know where it is. And the door's unlocked, and they go through this area where there's a sitting area that only holds about 12 people, if that. It's about the size of a 600 to 800 square foot home or apartment. And they let him have a can of Coke that's nice and chilled, and some macadamia nuts. And then they said, okay, let's go. He says, you follow me, but don't follow me too close. We're going to go through the loading dock. They go in, and the federal agent shakes hands with the 2 pilots, and tells them in certain, I want to say polite, but in using careful language and purpose of explanation why he's here. And then they go towards the back, and they sit down there, and there's only 3 other people on top of them there. And the thing is, other than one I believe it wouldn't be a federal officer, it would be another special security officer that stands up and oversees them until the plane starts going in there. Then the guy sits down, and where he sits, he can really keep an eye on people. Yeah. And then what happens after they've been in the air for about an hour? They don't get a full meal, but what they do get, it's a airline stewardess, a lady, a female employee, associate. She writes down what he wants. What he wants is a ham sandwich with lettuce and tomato and mustard, and a bag of Lay's potato chips. And she also gives him some 7-Up, because they don't have any coffee or anything like that in there. Because he has a choice between 7-Up, I believe it's something cola, and orange soda. Yeah, it's not a cola that is created by Pepsi or Coca-Cola. And then he eats the sandwich because he is getting hungry, and that really hits the spot. And then the pilot makes the announcement that that everybody should have their seatbelt on because they're getting close to landing at LAX. And then what happens is they land in LAX, and it's a part of LAX that most people don't know about. Inside LAX itself. It's way out in I guess you would say a corner. And he goes down a flight of stairs like this. And he goes into a special minivan that has tinted windows, or I guess it would be called sunblock windows or sunglass, you know what I mean. And it's a neat minivan. And they can look outside, but from the outside looking in, unless you're really close to that vehicle, you can't see who's in there. You can't. And they go over to the special apartment that is located on the 5900 block of Franklin. And there's an underground parking lot. Or I think what would be also, actually it'd be most likely called underground parking garage. Yeah. And they go in there, and they go upstairs to the house, because the federal agents, this close to him all the time. That's his job. It's so he can protect Antonio from getting violently attacked, or spied on, or gunned down, shot dead. And they go into the apartment, and the federal agent shows him, tours him around the inside of the apartment, and shows him what features are inside the kitchen and what's inside the compartments of the bathroom, because a lot of things are in the bathroom. An electric shaving razor, regular disposable razors made by, I think it would be made by either Gillette. Yeah, probably by Gillette. Antiperspirant, deodorant, toothpaste, toothbrushes. There's 2 different toothbrushes. Hand lotion, Tums, ibuprofen, aspirin. And in the kitchen refrigerator, there is, in the freezer there's hamburger, and there's some really good Mexican frozen foods in there that you pop in the microwave and heat up. And there's also rye bread, some good ham, good quality stuff, slices of cheese, mustard, ketchup, mayonnaise, horseradish, cocktail sauce, and there's salt and pepper shakers. There's at least 5 different spices like thyme, oregano, rosemary, cayenne pepper, chili powder. A lot of stuff's in there. They set up pretty good for not asking him a thing of what he wanted. And they help activate the new laptop that has special security features on it. Yeah. And the laptop is provided by a it's not DSL, but it's modern high-speed internet. Wireless internet. From a wireless modem. And they go into one of the closets, and they take out a nice Apple iPhone that is it's either an iPhone 6 Plus or a 7 Plus. Yeah. It's really good stuff. And he says, okay. He says, a company's going to come over and let you look at some jeans and some pants and some sweatpants and some underwear and some shirts and some shoes. Because they bring in these big storage containers just chock full of stuff. This happens about 30 to 45 minutes later. And he looks through the clothes and he says, "Oh man, I'm really hungry." He says, "Can I take one of those frozen foods? There's one, the Mexican one away. There's yeah, sure, go ahead, pop it. Read the instructions carefully and pop it in the microwave." And the other thing that is in there, because he doesn't want Pepsi or Coke, because there's 1 2-liter of Pepsi and there's 1 2-liter of Coke in there. He wants coffee. And the officer says, or the Federation, I should say. He says, "Oh, I forgot to set up your coffee maker." He says, "Hold on." He goes into the same closet where the iPhone was. He takes out a nice coffee maker that is Krups. And it's got these nice, I think, it's not going to be, that's the best impression I can do. The coffee filters like what you would go into Mr. Coffee and other coffee makers, kind of bowl-shaped. It's V-shaped like this. And he says, "Okay, here's 3 different choices of coffee blends, because these are already ground. He didn't have. These are coffee blends that don't have to be, that are whole bean, that have to be put through a grounder. They're already ground coffee. One was, I think it's called Blue Bottle, and the other one was from Whole Foods. It was something Costa Rica. A dark roast, and the other one was from, I think it was from Trader Joe's. It was called something medium body, and he goes for the one that's Trader Joe's medium body because he'd had that one before. He knows he's going to like it, and he looks through the part where plates and glasses would be, and he finds some nice white with no logos whatsoever on them coffee mugs. He's like, "Huh. So normally I would want something with some graphics on it, or something that would have some words that would say something that would be entertaining." And he goes into the refrigerator. He finds some coffee cream, and he has a choice of sugar, sweet and low, and honey. And he puts a little bit of honey in there, and he pulls out a drawer where the spoons are. And he goes, that's the best thing imitation I could do of stirring a coffee mug. And he eats the Mexican food, and then after that he goes through some clothes, and the people that do this for him, the company that provides all these big storage bins full of it, he picks out 3 different pairs of jeans, 2 different pairs of what's called khaki slacks, 3 different pairs of sweatpants, 1 sweatshirt, and at least 8 different t-shirts. Well, that's about it for him, going through the first process of getting used to the idea of being in protective custody, and all of that. Well, it's time for me to go now. It's quite late at night. It's time for me to hit the sack and get to bed. Thank you everyone for listening to this vlog. I hope you enjoyed it. I did the best I could. I really did. And goodbye now. Thanks a lot.